Before we get started, I just wanted to say thank you for agreeing to be a small group leader for us this year. Thank you for agreeing to spend your time working with our students and pouring into their lives. You guys know the importance of having good role models, good Christian men and women to help guide and direct us, because many of you came from that background, and some of you didn't come from that background, but which you did. I just want you to understand that you guys have such an important role in the lives of our students. Some weeks it may not feel like that, though. Some weeks are going to be a struggle, but I want you to understand that every week we get to walk in there and plant seeds. And I wanted to share with you something that's been kind of on my heart these last couple months. And it's been a verse out of Galatians. It comes out of Galatians 6:9. And what it says is this. It says, "Let us not become weary in doing good, for at the proper time we will reap a harvest if we don't give up." What an honor it is to have the opportunity to get to pour into students on a weekly basis like you guys get to. I've said it before and I'll say it again. I'm in youth ministry because I came from an awesome youth ministry. The reason I do this job and the reason I feel like I've been called to it and get to do this is because I got to experience what an awesome youth group is like. And a big part of why my youth group experience was awesome is the small group leaders I had. I may not have realized it at the time, but a lot of the lessons that they taught me, a lot of the little quirks and sayings and things that happen in small group have been things that have grown in my life later on and have become fruits that were planted a long, long time ago. I want you guys to realize that you have the opportunity to plant fruit this year. You guys have the opportunity to plant fruit, and I am so thankful that you have chosen to accept that calling, to accept that opportunity to get to influence and pour into God's people at a very young age. So thank you for doing this. I wanted to take a chance to walk through a typical Wednesday night for us as far as our scheduling. We will have weeks that don't follow that schedule, especially in the fall. We have a lot of weeks that are a little bit outside the norm, or we break schedule for a couple minutes. But typically, this is what to expect from a normal Wednesday Night Live for us. At 4 p.m. or maybe a little bit before, students kind of start to arrive. This is their chance to just kind of hang out, play games in the youth room. Some of them do homework, some of them talk to us, video games, pool, ping pong, that sort of thing. It's really just a chance for them to blow off some steam, have a little bit of fun, that sort of thing. At 5:15, we do start our Wednesday Night Live meal. And really what this is our students that are there can go in and get fed, get food. Typically, our students that are already there will eat, but we will have a lot of students that come in after the meal, either between 5:15 and 6 o'clock, or sometimes we have a lot of students that have things going on and we save a plate for them and they come in as soon as they can, which could be 6 o'clock, it could be 6:15, that sort of thing. 6 o'clock is when we start normal youth time, but before that we have a 5:45 youth leaders meeting, and this is really where I need you guys there. I need you guys there no later than 5:45, because we have a small group meeting just for all of our leaders to kind of go over what's going on that night. You guys should get a text message every week letting you know kind of the breakdown of the night. And you may think, well, then why do I have to go to the meeting? That is my chance to make sure everybody is there, make sure everybody's on the same page, address anything that may have come up in the last couple hours. And sometimes there's just some stuff that I really would rather say in person than through a text message. So it's a real short meeting, and we pray over the night, and then we head out to small groups. And at 6 o'clock, that's the first thing that you guys do as far as officially interacting with the students, is you're leading small groups. Small groups will kind of go over all these things and your roles and responsibilities in another segment, but small groups run for about 20 minutes, and then we go into worship. Now, worship is all together. Small groups are divided up by age and gender, and we will kind of designate that, and you guys will understand that a little bit later on. And you guys each have a small group you're responsible for. During that time, you'll give announcements, you will have discussion, that sort of thing. And then at 6:20, we're going to ask that everybody kind of pack up, no matter where you are in discussion. If you got through all the questions, great. If you didn't, that's okay too. We got to start heading to worship at 6:20. We're on a pretty tight time schedule, and you will find out really quickly that it takes a lot of time to move people from place to place. We may say we start worship at 6:20. Really, that's what time we're trying to get everybody to start sitting down. We are honestly hoping to get started with worship by 6:25 each Wednesday night. If we can do that, then we're running good on schedule. Some weeks though, it's not till 6:30, and that really puts a time crunch on everything else for the rest of the night. We don't want to do that because that compromises the time we get to spend with our students. So at 6:20, we need you guys to start wrapping your groups up, heading into worship, having them sit down, having them get ready. During worship, we'll play a couple songs, we'll sing together, we'll pray together. I will give a message, or somebody will give the message that week. And then after worship ends, we usually end about 7 o'clock. We head to Christ Candle. And Christ Candle is a big fancy way of saying it's our chance to share about what's going on in our week. We allow for our students and leaders to share their highs, lows, prayer requests with their small groups. So you guys you start off in small groups. You come into the well for worship all together, and then you break back up and go back into these small groups. And this last time you're together, called Christ Candle, is just a chance to share. It's just a chance to talk about your week. And we will go over all the expectations of these times. But at 7:15, that is our official end time. We need to have students start heading out the door. Now, there are weeks where Christ Candle takes 5 minutes. There are weeks where sometimes it's a little bit over. If you guys feel like Christ Candle is being productive and it's not going over, I don't want to say that you guys can go over, but if you got an extra 2 or 3 minutes, go ahead and use it. I'll take the flak for it. If we are having really good Christ Candle discussion and it's not just disruptive, or it's not just one person dominating the conversation, then go ahead and do that. Now, every week we have the responsibility of taking down tables and chairs. So that means we put our students on a rotation by small group. And every once in a while, it will be your small group's opportunity to take down tables and chairs. This is their way of serving. This is their way of contributing to the Wednesday Night Live process, contributing to what we do as a ministry to our church. And so that's kind of what we tell our students. They may view it as punishment, but it really is their chance to serve. It is their chance to be a part of the mission of the church, even if it's just a very, very small role. This is important. We need our students to help out with this. So if it is your week for the students to be taking down chairs and everything like that, make sure to account on that. You guys don't necessarily have to stay to help out with that. At 7:15, or as soon as your Christ Candle group is done, you guys are done. I don't expect you guys to stay until every kid is left. That's not your responsibility. That's my job. But if you want to help out with tables and chairs, I'm not going to turn down the opportunity for that help. But if you guys got to go, we understand that. Just kind of give me a heads up when you're leaving, and we'll work from there. So that is a typical Wednesday night. There will be changes, and as we have changes come up, or as we have things that break the norm, we will let you know, and we'll go from there. One of the things we get asked about the most, I think, is what are the duties of a small group leader? And it's really hard to just say, here are the duties, here's the list, because there are a lot of different things that go on. We have a very simple job, but a very important job. And there's a lot of little intricate components that go into that job. And so what I wanted to do is take you by a typical Wednesday night. And take you through each moment of a Wednesday night. That way you can kind of see what I expect your duties to be during that. First off, let's start off with, before we get there each week, you guys will get a text message from me. And most of the time I aim to have that text message to you guys, to your phones, by Monday afternoon. Sometimes it's Tuesday morning. Sometimes, if the week has just been crazy for me, it may be Wednesday afternoon when you get that. But you will get some kind of notification, text message, something communicating what we are doing that week. I expect you guys to read over that. I expect you guys to read over the scripture and be familiar with what we're talking about that week. Typically, I don't send out discussion questions until later on, but if there is a discussion question that is a little bit out of the norm, or something that is just you may need to be ready for, I will let you know that. But I expect you guys to read over those text messages, ask any major questions you may have to me before that, read over the scripture. That way you're just a little bit more familiar going in. At the leaders meeting, I expect you guys to be there at 5:45. If for some reason you can't be there at 5:45, just give me a heads up. If you guys got to miss a week, just communicate with me. That's the big thing. I can't work effectively if I'm not communicated with, just like you guys can't work effectively if you're not communicated with. So I really try to communicate with y'all as best as I can. I expect you guys just talk to me if stuff comes up. I get it. You guys are busy. I appreciate you taking the time to do this with our students, but I know that you have lives outside of this. So at the leaders meeting, I expect you to be there at 5:45. Your job there is to get info, pray over the week, that sort of thing. And if you have any questions or concerns, bring that up at that time. You know, if it's a small question about, hey, I didn't quite understand what you're talking about this. I want to see if this kind of lines up with where we're going, or maybe I thought, hey, this might be a good analogy. Yeah, bring that up at that time. That's the perfect time. Our leaders meetings are pretty relaxed. They're a little bit of a chance to kind of catch our breath before we go into Wednesday nights. And so, yeah, just that's the time to bring up any questions, that sort of thing. Once we get into small groups, this is kind of, I think, the most intensive part of your job. And I say intensive kind of loosely. It's also one of the most fun parts of our job is actually interacting with the students. That's the part that everybody enjoys, is getting to spend time and pour into these students and get to share in their lives. And that's just the cool part of being in youth ministry. But small groups, once we get into small groups, I have a couple expectations of y'all. Number one, I expect you to read the announcements. And that's kind of a duty that you have first off. You know, just read the announcements. That's our way of letting our students know what is going on that week. And you guys will get some form of announcements that you guys will read off. There may be a week or two that I say, you know what, we don't have announcements. If that's the case, that's okay. But most weeks you will have some form of announcements. After that, your job is to lead and facilitate discussion. Now, I provide you with 3 to 4 discussion questions per week. I want you guys to read those off and allow for your students to discuss. That doesn't mean that you cannot add into discussion. In fact, I encourage that. But we really do want this to be a chance for our students to start thinking and talking about whatever topic we're talking about that night. It's their chance to kind of get their brains geared towards that. And so some weeks it may be hard to get discussion going. That's okay. There are going to be some weeks where discussion flows very freely. Really what my expectation of y'all and your duty here is to facilitate discussion. Try to make an effort to engage students. Try to make an effort to keep the conversation balanced, meaning don't let somebody dominate the conversation every single week because that gets really old. And just try to engage every student, even if it's just a small role. There are going to be some students that do not want to be engaged. I mean, they don't want to be talked to. They don't want to be looked at. Don't call on me, please. Make an effort to try to engage them, and you'll get a feel for it. Some weeks, you know, the best thing you can do is to not call on that student. That's okay. Ideally, we want our students to just have a chance to learn and discuss and share in their viewpoints, that sort of thing. Each of these discussion questions is tailored to your age group, meaning they're thought about considering where they are in life, what their experiences may be, that sort of thing. So these questions are specifically tailored toward that group. I do want you to read through them. As you guys have input, though, we do want you to throw that in there. And if you guys have questions that you think may be relevant to the discussion, please throw those in there. We trust your judgment on that. If you have a question or think maybe I want to check with Taylor, that's fine. Just come check with me, but I trust your judgment. I am trusting you guys to be in the lives of these students. I definitely trust if you think you have something to share, and that's great. During worship, it's a little bit of a hands-off kind of engagement, but I do have some things that I need you guys to be aware of during worship. Worship, typically our students all sit together and the adults are kind of scattered around. You can sit with the students. I think that's great if you want to. If you want to hang towards the back, that's okay. I expect you guys to be present and engaged, meaning you are in the room, you are paying attention to what's going on and engaged in worship. That doesn't mean you have to be the one singing at the front. That would be awesome. If that's you, awesome, do it. But, you know, I expect you guys to be focused during worship, engaged. Don't be, you know, if you got to take a business call or something like that, don't take it right in the middle of worship because that's super distracting. If you wouldn't do it during a Sunday service, don't do it during the middle of worship on Wednesday night because it's the same deal. It's still worship. The other things I need you guys to be working on is I need you guys to be my eyes and ears. Typically on Wednesdays during worship is kind of my time where I can't really step in and direct a student or tell them, hey, you can't do that here because I'm in front of everybody or I don't see it. I need you guys to be paying attention. I need you guys to be watching. If a student is being disruptive, please, tap them on the shoulder, say something. You don't have to embarrass them or call them out. Now, if it's a continuing problem, then we'll deal with it as it comes. But I need you guys to help kind of keep our students in line. And you think like this goes away as the students get older. It really doesn't. It kind of shifts forms. And that's kind of the next thing I want to talk to you guys about. I need you guys, as awkward as it is, to help me with PDA. Help me with public displays of affection. I don't mind high fives. I don't mind hugs between friends, but hand holding, kissing, cuddling during worship, that's not really the place for it. And that's not what we want going on when we're trying to, be sharing the gospel, everything like that. That's just a little bit awkward and it makes people uncomfortable. So if there is something going on that makes you guys uncomfortable, please say something. That doesn't mean you have to embarrass the student, but maybe just come up and say, hey, this is not the place for that. Hey, let's not do that here. That sort of thing. And I understand that PDA can be kind of a touchy topic. So here's my rule. If it makes you uncomfortable, then I would say something. So if you guys see something and you think, you know what, I really just don't feel right about that, go ahead and say something. I'm not going to stop you. I want you guys to be comfortable. I want you guys to feel, like this is a comfort zone. And chances are, if you're uncomfortable with it, it's making somebody else uncomfortable. So go ahead and say something. Now, there are moments where you see something going on and you think, man, that's not right. We got to stop it. But maybe I'm not the right person to stop it. In that case, maybe there's a better leader for that. And an example of that would be like, let's say there is a girl who is, kind of leaning on a boy and it's a little bit inappropriate. As a guy, I recognize that if I go say something, it's a whole lot more embarrassing for that girl and for me than if one of the female leaders say it. So I would go get a female leader. And that can go true in the other way as well. So if that happens, feel free to go grab another leader or grab me. Obviously, if it's in the middle of the message, maybe we find a way to work around that. But I trust your judgment. I trust you guys to kind of make this a safe place and a comfortable place for our students to be in worship. And if one person is making everybody else uncomfortable, or if one person is distracting everybody else, then we need to do something about that. Now, our job is not to embarrass the students. Now, obviously, we'll mess with them, we'll laugh with them, that sort of thing, but we never want to try to embarrass a student if they're acting out. Because half the time the students are acting out to get attention, the other half of the time they're just testing boundaries. Either way, we don't want to be a place that it just goes out and embarrasses students. That's not what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to be enriching these kids' lives. We're supposed to be supporting them and guiding them. And embarrassing a student is really just not the way to do that. So if you guys are struggling with maybe what's the best way to do this, come talk to me. We'll get a strategy together and we'll go from there. From worship, we go into Christ Candle. Christ Candle is our chance to share every single week of what's going on. What I expect for you guys to do during this is I expect you to help create a safe space for your students to share. That means you guys are going to have to limit students that are maybe wanting to gossip. We've had that problem before. You guys are going to have to be upfront that this is a safe place. And you guys are going to have to back that up by not allowing, for people to be making fun of each other during that. Now, there is a fine line, and I think the guys groups kind of have to walk this more often than not. There's a fine line between laughing as friends and picking on someone. And sometimes it gets crossed, and we hate that, but sometimes it does. So I encourage you guys to be kind of strict on that line. If you guys are curious about the boundary or anything like that, come talk to me and we'll work something out. Each group is different. Each interaction is different. That kind of makes this hard because each week is going to be a little bit different because each student and each situation changes. The next thing I need you guys to be responsible for during Christ Candle is I need you to make sure each student has a chance to share. Christ Candle is one of the most important things we do in our ministry. It's our chance for students to come in and talk about some things that may really be bugging them or some things that really may have gone good. We need to make sure that each student has a chance to share in our ministry because that's going to make them feel validated. It's going to show that they matter to us and it's going to show that they matter to the church. Believe it or not, our job is to model Christ to these students. And so if we don't allow for each student to share, if we don't allow for each student to be respected during their time here, they're going to think that that's the way that Christ views them. And that's kind of not what we want to happen. We want our students to be loved, and we want them to know that they are genuinely valued by Christ. They're genuinely valued by their Creator. And so we ask that you guys just help to make sure these environments are safe and that they're an environment where everybody gets an opportunity to share. This next part is kind of dicey, and I hate saying it, but it's important. The next duty I need for you guys to do is, if there is something that comes up during Christ Candle about a student who is in a bad situation or is depressed or maybe is being abused, these are tragic situations, and I hope you don't have to deal with that. But the reality is that we do, and we have had to deal with that. If that comes up or you're concerned about a student, please come talk to me right away. Just come let me know. You know, some situations require immediate and urgent attention. If it is a situation like that, please come grab me. Whatever I'm doing, come grab me. If it's a situation you just want me to know about, let me know throughout the week, or text me, or say, before you leave, I need to talk to you, something like that, or say, hey, I'm going to call you tomorrow. That works great. I want to be in the know about everything I can be in the know about. You know, I realize that there's a lot of students and there's a lot to keep track of, but if there are situations going on that are bad, we need to know about them. So let me know as you can. And then last, I need you to record prayer requests in our journal. That's how we kind of keep track of, you know, who's been praying for what and why and when and how. And we get to watch, you know, how these prayer requests have been answered and see kind of where our students' hearts are through that. And we take those prayer requests and we compile them into a list. We send them out to y'all, but they also go out to our prayer team that prays over our students every week. And they may not be there on Wednesday nights, but they're an important part of our ministry, just getting to coat those students in prayer as they walk through the halls of the junior high and the high school. We want people praying for them because everybody needs it, especially our students in our schools. And then finally, outside of youth group, I have a couple duties that I expect of y'all. I expect you to encourage your students as you have time. I realize that y'all are busy. I realize that, you know, sometimes you don't have time in your week to reach out to a student. I get that. But as you have time, just, you know, text your students or maybe send them a note, something like that. If you are going to text your students, and I will give you guys all the phone numbers that I have for them, I expect you guys to do a couple things. The number one thing is follow the 9 to 9 rule, which means don't text them before 9 a.m. and do not text them after 9 p.m. This is just kind of a policy that we have in our ministry here, is the 9 to 9 rule. No text before 9 a.m. and no text after 9 p.m. That kind of gives you a 12-hour window. And yes, I realize it's in the middle of school, but they have time after school and in the early evening that they can talk to you and that sort of thing. And also, I need you guys, if you're talking with a student, just save your text messages for at least a month. That way, if, you know, there's any questions or anything comes up, I don't really expect there to be any questions, but, you know, sometimes there are. And there's a really easy setting on your phone. You can save your messages to automatically delete after 1 month. If you are in the habit of deleting your text regularly. And I realize that keeps a lot of storage on your phone, but it also helps you guys to be, you know, accountable. It helps us. It allows us to be transparent in our ministry, and we don't ever want to be doing things in the shadows. We want to be upfront about what we're doing because we believe that, you know, what we're doing is right. We believe that what we're doing is of God and is good. So we want to be upfront about those things. We don't want to hide them. And then I need you guys to be in prayer for your students. Be in prayer. It's simple. I mean, like I said earlier, we're going to send out the prayer requests you have, but if you guys have other things that pop up and you're just really worried about, you know, the leadership of, you know, so-and-so, yeah, go ahead and pray for that. It's small, but that makes a world of difference. Those are the things I expect of you guys. And I know there are a couple things that I didn't get to, but those are the big ones. That's what I expect of you, and those are your duties as a small group leader.